Okay, so now let's go on to the movements in the different parts of the gastrointestinal tract. So, first we are going to talk about mastication, that is chewing, then swallowing, then movements in the stomach, then gastric emptying, after that vomiting, then movements in the small intestine, movements in the large intestine, and finally a little bit about defecation. Okay, so let's start with mastication. This is just a very introductory thing about mastication. What is this? What is mastication? It is basically chewing. It is the process by which food is taken in the mouth and crushed into smaller particles by grinding action of the teeth. Okay, so the main aim or use of mastication or chewing is to make the food suitable for swallowing. We cannot swallow large particles of food, large cubes of food. It has to be broken down into smaller particles so that we can swallow the food. Okay, it also breaks down the cellulose covering of some food. We cannot basically digest the cellulose covering, so that has to be broken down. That is done by chewing. By breaking it down into smaller particles, mastication also helps increase the surface area on which the enzymes can act. Okay, so these are the basic uses of mastication. Now, mastication is a voluntary process which is carried out by muscles of mastication. What are the muscles of mastication? The muscles of mastication are masseter, pterygoid, temporalis, and buccinator. If you look at the anatomical diagram on the right side, you can see all the muscles. Okay, so see, this is the temporalis, this is the temporalis, this is the masseter, this is the buccinator. Here you have the pterygoids, okay, lateral and medial pterygoid. Now this mastication also helps in salivation. You have already done what is the use of salivation, what are the enzymes present in salivation. Okay, so mastication helps in salivation. Now let's go on to deglutition and swallowing. After chewing, we swallow the food. So what is deglutition? Deglutition is the process by which food is passed from mouth to pharynx to esophagus and finally to the stomach. The mastication was totally voluntary, but for deglutition the initiation is voluntary, but the rest of the process is reflexive. Okay, it has three phases: oral or buccal phase. The oral or buccal phase is mainly voluntary. As soon as the food bolus touches the pharynx, opening of the pharynx, the process becomes involuntary. So the first phase is oral or buccal, next phase is pharyngeal, and after that we have the esophageal phase. So this process, this whole process, this oral phase, this pharyngeal phase, the esophageal phase is brought about by this swallowing reflex. The swallowing reflex basically helps in the process of swallowing. What is the swallowing reflex? The swallowing reflex is basically a rigidly ordered sequence of events which propel the food from mouth to pharynx to stomach. For the food to go from the mouth to pharynx to the stomach, lots of changes has to occur. Now these changes are brought about by the swallowing reflex arc. So since it's a reflex arc, it has an afferent limb, a center, and the efferent limb. So let's look at the different parts of this arc. The swallowing reflex also inhibits respiration. Okay, so it inhibits respiration and closes the glottis so that during swallowing food does not go into the trachea. So now let's look at the afferent limb. The afferent limb is the touch receptors present near opening of the pharynx. When food enters the mouth, we voluntarily initiate swallowing. As the food there goes from the mouth to the esophagus and touches the and stimulates the or activates the touch receptors present near the opening of the pharynx, the swallowing reflex is started. So the afferent limb is touch receptors present near the opening of the pharynx, followed by, from there it goes to the swallowing or deglutition center in the medulla, and then finally the efferent limb is formed by motor impulses to the muscles of the pharynx and the upper esophagus by cranial nerves, and by parasympathetic vagal motor neurons to the esophagus. So touch receptors activated, goes the stimulus goes to the information goes to the swallowing and deglutition center. From there the muscles of pharynx and upper esophagus and the muscles of pharynx and esophagus are instructed to act so that we can complete the swallowing process. This is mediated by both extrinsic and intrinsic nerves. They propel the food from the mouth to the stomach. The swallowing reflex also protects the airway during swallowing, and it also protects esophagus from acidic gastric contents. Okay, we will see that. So oral phase, this is a voluntary phase. This is initiated when a tip of the tongue separates bolus of food. Then the tongue moves upwards and backwards and pushes the food into the pharynx. From there the food activates the pharyngeal touch receptors and the deglutition reflex is initiated, and finally the nasopharynx closes and the food starts moving towards the oropharynx. Due to the closure of nasopharynx, the food particles cannot go into the respiratory tract. After that we get the pharyngeal phase. In the pharyngeal phase, the vocal cords close, then the larynx is elevated so that food can in no way go into the larynx and trachea. Then so the airway is closed and the food is prevented from entering the airway. This is followed by upper esophageal sphincter relaxation, UVS relaxation. So the esophagus has two sphincters, the upper esophageal sphincter and the lower esophageal sphincter. The upper esophageal sphincter, which is present at the junction of pharynx and the esophagus, relaxes and food moves from the pharynx to the esophagus. And during this time, the superior constrictor muscles of the pharynx contract and initiates peristaltic waves, and the bolus of the food is forced deeply into the pharynx and esophagus through the open upper esophageal sphincter. After the bolus of food passes from the pharynx to the esophagus, there is reflex closure of the esophageal sphincter. Okay, so what is happening? When we take in food, we voluntarily initiate the swallowing reflex. The food goes and the nasopharynx closes. The food goes to the mouth to the opening of the pharynx, where the pharyngeal touch receptors are activated, and nasopharynx is closed. As a result, the deglutition reflex is initiated. Then the vocal cords close, the larynx elevates, and the airway is closed. No food can enter the airway now. Simultaneously, or a little bit after that, the upper esophageal sphincter relaxes and food passes from the opening of the pharynx to the esophagus with the help of the contraction of the superior constrictor muscles of the pharynx. Okay. Now as soon as the food goes deep into the esophagus, the upper esophageal sphincter closes. This was the pharyngeal phase. During pharyngeal phase, respiration is reflexively inhibited because everything is closed. So and respiration is inhibited. After that, we go on to the esophageal phase. Here, the bolus passes through the upper esophageal sphincter and stimulates the esophageal mechanoreceptors. We get one peristaltic wave, that is the primary peristalsis. This is followed by another peristaltic wave. This is the secondary peristalsis. And the food reaches the lower esophageal sphincter. Okay. Due to the deglutition reflex, which is initiated by activation of the pharyngeal touch receptors, the lower esophageal sphincter and the upper part of the stomach is already relaxed. Okay. So there is closure of the upper esophageal sphincter, movement of the food from the upper part of the esophagus to the lower part by the primary peristalsis, then the secondary peristalsis, and then finally the food bolus passes from the esophagus to the stomach through the open lower esophageal sphincter. Okay, so this is the esophageal phase. After food moves through the lower esophageal sphincter into the stomach, followed by closure of the lower esophageal sphincter. Okay. Now there are two abnormalities with this swallowing process, that is achalasia cardia, and abnormality in this swallowing process can lead to achalasia cardia and GERD. So what is achalasia cardia? These are basically opposite effects. These have opposite effects. What is achalasia cardia? This is a primary motility disorder characterized by absence of esophageal peristalsis and impaired relaxation of the lower esophageal sphincter in response to swallowing. So neither the esophagus is moving properly, that is neither the peristaltic waves are being initiated properly, nor the lower esophageal sphincter is opening. So food is not moving properly from the esophagus from the stomach to the stomach. Food is being accumulated in the esophagus. So basically what happens in achalasia cardia, there is blockage of food in the esophagus. The food doesn't move and the food cannot pass into the stomach. So there is functional obstruction in the gastroesophageal junction. Now, most common symptom is dysphagia, that is difficulty in swallowing or difficulty in swallowing solid food. This is caused basically by loss of inhibitory ganglion cells in the mesenteric plexus. As a result, ileus does not relax and there is no peristaltic waves. And the management, there is medical management and surgical management. Medical management is basically by calcium channel blockers and botulinum. Now what is GERD? GERD is basically the opposite thing. There is improper or inadequate closure of ileus. In achalasia, there was ileus was not closing and not opening. Here in GERD, the ileus is not closing. So it can occur following a heavy meal, in pregnancy, in hiatus hernia. Gastroesophageal reflux disease is basically reflux or backflow of acidic gastric contents into the esophagus. Now the esophagus doesn't have any mucosal barrier, hence the acid in the gastric contents will attack the esophageal mucosa and lead to heartburn, regurgitation, indigestion, pain, substernal pain. Basically this pain can be so severe that it can mimic myocardial infarction. And chronic GERD, chronic gastroesophageal reflux disease, can lead to ulceration, stricture, dysphagia, and may also lead to esophageal carcinoma. Okay, and the management is mainly lifestyle. There's diet modification. There is less spicy food, small meals, less intervals, then less alcohol, less irritant intake, and some medical management which includes H2 blockers, that is ranitidine, famotidine, PPI, that is proton pump inhibitor. Those are pantoprazole, esomeprazole, prokinetics like domperidone and antacids. Okay. So this was all about GERD and movements in the esophagus.